Hey guys, Tomboy61, and today we have a review of the Flanders, the Flandre, whatever we want to call it. I'm going to call it the Flanders because, well,
Stupid sexy Flanders!
yeah. Well, anyways, Flanders, it's the campaign reward ship for this round, and we'll go ahead and go over the build, who I recommend, modules, the consumables, all that good stuff. Then go ahead and show off a game in it and have a little bit of fun. So, if you are interested in that, make sure you stick around. So, let's go ahead and just dive on in with the commander. And the commander that I have been running is going to be Azur Lane Dunkirk, just because I think she offers a nice mixture between your offensive and defensive skills, and she does a good job of being a hybrid commander, and I like the way she plays, and her unique skill makes playing French battleships unique and more interesting, and especially when you're playing Flanders, you want something that's going to spice it up, because Flanders just feels like a very middle of the road kind of ship. It's one that doesn't excel in anything in particular, so her unique skill doing what it does makes it feel like at least there's a little bit of an interesting quirk to the Flanders. Anyways, so if you're not aware, Dunkirk, her base trait is going to reduce damage, reduce flooding damage. Then we're running Flammable Cannoneer. Her unique skill, which is Frontal Fire, which allows you to switch the type of shell inside the guns when you have it maxed out at negative 95%. So pretty much instantly, in a second, you can flip from AP to HE shells, assuming all the guns are fully loaded, which is a very nice skill that you definitely want to have if you have Dunkirk. Then Megalomania, which is going to reduce the reload on the ship and also reduce the time you are spotted after you fire your main guns. Then Master Mechanic and Fight Fire with Fire. And then we are reducing the reload even more using Madden and Paolo di Revel. If you are not someone who has Azur Lane Dunkirk, let me introduce you to my friend Jean-Jaude. This is my standard build that I use over on things like Champagne. You have you have his base trait, which is going to boost penetration, then Flammable Cannoneer, Gyrating Gilbits, Marksmanship, Reaching Out, and Will to Rebuild, and then we're pairing that with Megatron and Cunningham. I use this one mainly over on Champagne just because it has the longest range in the game, and I like to play a little bit more accuracy focused on that one. So that is the two commanders you could run. Of course, Megatron, not a free commander, but you can replace him out with someone else. As far as the modules go, in the first mod slot, we are running Aiming System Mod 1. You can, because this is a friendship, run the Armament Durability mod. I did have a game today where both of my front turrets got shot out, and I only had the rear turret, and I really kind of wanted them to shoot out my rear turret too, just so I could become a tracking torpedo. But I'm running Aiming System Mod 1. In the second slot, we're running Steering Gears because this ship can be maneuverable, and having the ability to steer out of the way of those torpedoes is very useful. Then we're running Target Acquisition mod, and finally, we're running the Main Battery mod to once again reduce that reload time. Finally, the consumables available on this ship. If we want to go ahead and take a look, you don't have any options or switch outs on them. First one is going to be the Damage Control Party. It's going to last 15 seconds, reload in 80 seconds. Then we have Repair Party, 379 HP per second. It's going to last 28 seconds. It's going to reload every 75.2 seconds, and because of Master Mechanic, we get 4 charges of it. Then we have Enhanced Secondary Targeting. We all know what that does. Boosts the battery shell grouping by 100%, reduces dispersion by 50%. It lasts 30 seconds. It's going to reload in 106 seconds, and it's going to have 3 charges. And finally, we have the Engine Boost, which is going to boost the speed of the ship for 8 seconds. It's going to last 180 seconds. It's going to reload in 180 seconds, and you get 2 of those charges. I am also just running the speed flag just because the way Flanders kind of works is you want to be out on the flanks, and the speed is what allows you to get out and position yourself on the flanks before you get spotted, because this isn't exactly the stealthiest ship out there. You're going to want to get out onto those flanks. So those are the all of that, let's now dive on into the stats of the vessel and the hit points. This is one of the most durable tier 10 ships. 71,630 base hit points, which is absolutely massive. Armor thickness between 19 and 430 millimeters. We'll go ahead, take a look at the armor view, and you will notice something. This ship is coated in 32 millimeters of armor. So bow tanking is absolutely there, just not when you're up against things like Yamato. But for the vast majority of things in the game, you can absolutely bow tank in this thing, which is why maybe that turret boost is something that is worth to look at. The ship does provide a good amount of armor, and as we can see, the Citadel just kind of down the center and just peeking up above the water, and we do have somewhat of a turtleback scheme within the ship. So it does do fairly well up close. It can protect you, but this ship can also absolutely be death struck if you aren't angling correctly. So that is the armor scheme. Let's now go ahead. We'll finish off with the torpedo reduction. It's going to have a 32% torpedo reduction. Main battery of the ship, 3-barreled, 380 millimeter guns, aka 15 inches, which is less than desirable compared to what else is at the tier, but it can still do fairly well. It's the same 15-inch guns that pretty much all the other French ships have, except it's in a 3-barreled configuration instead of the usual 2 4-barreled configuration. So, you know, trade-offs here and there. Firing range, 18.8 kilometers with a reload time of 24.6 seconds. That's going to give you a shell sprint rate of 22. 180 time, 39.3 seconds, so a fairly long time on that. HE damage, 5,130, giving you 112,860 DPM with a 36% chance to set fire. AP damage, 11,305, which is fairly kind of low on the lower end for the tier, giving you a DPM of 248,710. Secondaries, well, you have 2 sets of secondary batteries, one set of 14x2 100 millimeter cannons and 3 3-barreled 152. Both have a firing range of 5.2 kilometers. The 100 millimeters are going to have a 3-second reload, do 1,400 damage, and have a 5% chance to set fire. The 152 millimeter guns are going to have a 12-second reload, do 2,200 damage, and have a 12% chance to set fire. Just something to note with the secondaries, they aren't big enough to really do a lot of pen damage at the tier, so they're only really useful against some cruisers and destroyers. Don't really lean on these in a battleship brawl, because the only thing they're really going to do is maybe start a fire for you. AA is respectable on this ship. It's going to have a range of 5 kilometers, 232 damage per second minimum, and 337 maximum, which is okay and on the lower end, but it's still somewhat respectable. Speed of the vessel, this is where this thing shines. 34.5 knots, even when we're using gyrating joule bits, which reduces the speed drastically. Turning radius, nearly a kilometer at 910 meters, and a rudder shift time of 13.3 seconds. Finally, let's get on to the concealment. You're gonna have a detectability by sea of 14.8 kilometers, detectability by air of 12.4 kilometers, and a detectability while firing in smoke of 14.1 kilometers. And those are all of the stats of the vessel. So with all that said, now let's go ahead and take a look at a game in Flanders, and we can go ahead and talk about and whether I recommend picking up this ship. Okay, so here we are on Hotspot, and we've done what the Flanders loves, and that is spawn on the flank. And that's because, well, this is a fast battleship, one that really enjoys coming out to the flanks because it lets it access broadsides, and that's where its strengths are. Now, something to be aware of with Flanders is, well, you have that usual wonky French dispersion. It does tend to be a bit more of a shotgun horizontal than vertical, but it still, let me tell you, gets annoying, which is why in the end this isn't going to be my favorite ship overall. It is very much a middle of the road sort of ship, but we'll get into the reasons why. So we've gone ahead, just started off with leading with our engine boost. We figure, one, we know that the enemy destroyer is most likely going to push into B. We have our HE loaded right now, though I feel like we probably should have led with AP, but we don't really need to worry about that because we have the ability to switch these shells out really quickly, and that's the main reason I would play Flanders. The thing with the thing with Flanders is, like, all of the other tier 7 French battleships have a sort of weird quirk to them, right? Jean-Bart and Richelieu, they have the dual front firing turrets. The Gascon and Champagne, they have the 2 turrets, one on front, one on rear. This is the only, like, traditional layout battleship that the French have. So it is nice to have it if you're a fan of French ships. You do maintain a lot of those abilities. At this point, I thought I had AP loaded because that Georgia looks like he's at an angle where we could do some pretty pen damage, but we do end up just hitting him for 2 fires, and hey, that causes him to at least burn, or no, he doesn't even burn his damage con yet. I think he's kind of waiting because he knows there's a destroyer around, and he's a little bit cautious of that, but we're going to continue to push in here, apply pressure. We can see the enemy Fletcher is right on over there. We want to also start to apply pressure to him, cut off his ability to kind of escape, and we know, hey, if we can get the guns loaded, we can go ahead. I know we have AP load right now, but if need be, we can flip on a dime over to HE. We want to apply this pressure over here because usually a ship in this position, it wouldn't be a battleship. It would have to usually be some sort of cruiser because of the speed in which we got over here. But Fletcher kind of dips his nose out. We're kind of cautious just because we know usually when destroyers do that, they're waiting to fire a salvo of torpedoes, but we do have our destroyer over there. He would kind of pick up on whether or not that is something we need to worry about. So, Fletcher taken care of. We don't need to worry about him anymore. Now it's time to brawl with this Georgia, and we can see what the secondaries can do, and it's not great. As I mentioned before while talking about the secondaries, there isn't the caliber here to really brawl with them, and more importantly, there isn't really the range to brawl with them. Over on PC, Flanders has a 7-kilometer secondary range, and I feel like that would have been welcome here to just distinguish it a little, to give it slightly longer range on those secondaries. We can see we get decent pen damage right there, a couple of overpens, which is very, very common for the high speed shells that the French have, the high velocity shells, and we're just kind of turning, waiting for our shells to reload. We can see friendly, or I think that's a Stalingrad, or it's a Alaska, coming up broadside to the Georgia. He goes ahead, knocks him down, and sadly we only get 2 fires lit on us. I wish we had gotten 1 more fire so that it would automatically put out, but as it stands, we are going to have to let these fires burn. So we've successfully cleared B. The enemy team has yet to take C, but they have clumped over at C. So now comes our options. What do we want to do with the rest of this game? We could try to push straight into C. That could give us some advantages, but remember, we are a fast battleship, 1, and 2, we have a straight shot to their base, and we are going to be concealed during that if we would like to be. So I think the plan now, what we're formulating is, 1, finish capturing B, then push enough horizontally over so that we can rain fire into C, choose our shots selectively, because remember, we do have Megalomania, which is going to allow us to fall off the radar quicker than usual, so we can go ahead, fire our gun, fall off radar, use that time to reposition, rinse and repeat, because we do have that window between our spotting range and our firing range, and that will be very key to keep the enemy ships in exactly that little area. Now, one downside to this strategy is we are in a French ship, and well, we've already established the sort of shotgun mentality. We see Minotaur right over here. Broadside, we're going to go ahead and kind of ripple fire just because we don't know if he's slowing down or speeding up. We want to be able to get a couple of shells into him. We are spotted now, and we've kind of revealed ourselves. We're waiting really on our engine boost to get activated again so we can start the full-out sprint. We do get a Citadel over on that Minotaur, which is exactly what we want to do. I believe he starts to smoke up in response. which is fine by us. He's going to go ahead and drop spot of us. He is able to get a couple of good salvos into the air. Minotaur AP, very, very good at chipping away that health. We can see he's getting solid pen damage. Grossa Kernfust coming out broadside to us, which is exactly what we want. We're perfectly broadside. We go ahead, line up that shot, let it fly, and we're trying to, once again, kind of make it so that we get into that cap area. We hit the citadel. We do a good chunk of damage. And that's one of the good things and the bad things about Flanders is sometimes you get beautiful salvos like that. And you just wish you could do those all day. But because of the accuracy, a lot of times, it doesn't quite end that way. You'll end with these long range shots a lot of times with like bracketed fire where you don't get any hits, but you get hits, you get splashes on both sides of the vessel. And you're like, well, I know I aimed correctly because if the splashes were on both sides of the vessel, that means the dispersion bubble was perfectly placed. So we just have to deal with the dispersion. Now, we go ahead, flip over to HE, because that Grossa Kernfest not at an angle that will allow us to pen, and we are just able to flip over, then hide behind this island and start flipping over A, which is exactly what we want. We want to be able to start maintaining more caps in the enemy team, which is going to allow us to start to accrue those points. And we're going to use this opportunity to make the turn, try to start getting further pushed to the left of that map. That way we can start opening up crossfires. We can see our friendly Alaska has taken up a beautiful position on that center island to kind of bow tank any enemies there. So we want to be able to get over more horizontally so that the enemies have to make a decision. Do they bow tank the Alaska, or do they bow tank us, or do they try to split the middle and kind of make it difficult on both sides? That is the decision we are trying to force over on the enemy. And that's what we're going to do in the Flanders, because guess what, guys? That's what Flanders is good at. It's good at coming out to these long-range flanks to kind of make these weird plays to kind of influence the battle of, oh crap, I have to either choose to angle this battleship or choose to angle the more common placement of my teammates. Now, this strategy does require you to have somewhat competent teammates, and we all know everyone's favorite team is the other team because they always seem to be a bit better than our blue teammates, but that's just where we are. And that kind of really wraps up the game. If I recall, Richelieu is going to come out here with just a little bit of health remaining, and well, there's nothing much he can do because we're going to go ahead and wrap up that kill. And now it's just us kind of pushing back towards C. I don't think we really have any more contacts for the rest of the game. So let me go ahead and give my final thoughts on Flanders here. It's an okay ship. I fully expect it to be a GXP ship in 6 to 8 months, kind of how we've seen things like Champagne and Suzuki come. This feels just like one of those GXP ships. The fleet of meh is what the Flanders will be joining. I don't think it does anything particularly unique or particularly well. It's a standard layout battleship with 32 millimeters of armor all around, with 15-inch guns in a standard 2 up front, 1 in the back turret layout. It just doesn't do anything unique, and because of that, I don't find myself being drawn to this ship. Now, do I recommend buying the campaign? Yes. Just because the resources that you get, that 2,500 doubloons gets you, that is always an absolutely worth it if you're interested in progressing in the game. Do I think you should go out and purchase out the campaign for, I think, like 25,000 doubloons? God, no. Don't do that. But if you're struggling on funds, I think this is one of those campaigns I think you can safely kind of let go and not really worry about. It's okay on this one for you not to participate if times are tough, or if you're just kind of not really too interested in the game right now. This is a good update to kind of take off. This is a good one. So yeah, guys, those are my final thoughts on Flanders. I'll go ahead post scoreboard. I think we ended up top of the scoreboard with like 2,500 experience, which overall is a pretty decent game. I think this match shows off best what Flanders is good at, just kind of sticking to those flanks, trying to hit the shots, but then arguably also trying to make it so that you're close enough for your dispersion not to matter as much. It's one of those. Anyways, guys, if you like the video, go ahead, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. See ya.